Wrestle Machine Data Query from 1994, a unique moment in time in pro wrestling. November 21, 1994 Observer Newsletter, Wrestling in the U.S. suddenly becomes exciting, thoughts on AAA, WWF, WCW, the UWFI pay-per-view, and so much more. Wrestling Observer Newsletter P.O. Box 1228, Campbell, California 950091228 November 21, 1994. Shoot Fighting 3. Thumbs up 51, 100.0%. Thumbs down 0, 0.0%. In the middle 0, 0.0%. Best Match Poll. Nobuhiko Takada vs Gary Albright 26. Nelson and Laddick vs Sakuraba and Kakihara 17. Worst Match Poll. Billy Scott vs Yoshihiro Takayama 16. Tom Burton vs Hiromitsu Kanehara 7. When Worlds Collide Final Poll Results. Thumbs up 449, 98.0%. Thumbs down 501, 1%. In the middle 400, 9%. Best Match Poll. Santo and Octagon vs Machine and Guerrero 323. Conan vs Pero Aguayo 51. Mysterio Jr. and Metal and Lover vs Guerrera and Psicosis and Boyfriend 36. Espectrito and Estrada vs Octagon Cheeto and Sagrada 31. Worst Match Poll. Santana and Pegasus and Scorpio vs Panther and Parka and Estrada 83. Conan vs Pero Aguayo 55. Mysterio Jr. and Metal and Lover vs Guerrera and Psicosis and Boyfriend 25. Based on phone calls, letters and fax messages to the Observer as of Monday, 11/14. Statistical margin of error, ±100%. It's a really exciting time to be a wrestling fan in the United States because, as a widely known saying goes, variety is the spice of life, and as a not so widely known saying goes, for pro wrestling to thrive, the only thing that can remain the same is constant change. We are ending an era of wrestling that started 10 years ago. It may be over already, or it may have a year or two left. But it is an era that is ending. On January 23, 1984, the new era of pro wrestling, one which initially thrived and the past few years has struggled, began when Hulk Hogan leg dropped the Iron Sheik. 6 months later Cyndi Lauper brought it to the attention of a new audience, the media picked up on it, and a boom period started. Forget that the reality of the situation was that the boom period of actual great interest, huge ratings and big crowds started years earlier and the media caught the tail end, but this coincided with some technological advances and the business was off and running in a new direction. The architect of the new era was Vince McMahon, and the rest of the wrestling business in the United States spent the first few years laughing at his ignorance, figuring he was spending too much money and would tap himself out. Even when it was obvious during the week in late March of 1985 when WrestleMania became a cultural symbol due to the appearance of a charismatic, no-talent actor named Mr. T who was in the middle of his own huge run, that McMahon's new concept had revolutionized the business, most of the established promoters took solace in the fact that much of what he was doing was wrong, thus wouldn't work, even as it was working right before their eyes. Unfortunately, those truisms that they were raised on had all become false. The problem at that time was it's almost impossible to convince people who know it all that times have changed and that unless they adapt, that knowledge of the past is useless. Never was this exemplified more than when WCW brought in Bill Watts to run the company in 1992. Make no mistake about it. Bill Watts was one of the great minds in pro wrestling and took a third-rate territory in Louisiana and Oklahoma and set it on fire. If timing and luck, and a lot of money, had been on his side, in late 1983 and 1984 he would have been a major force on the national scene. By the time he made the try, it was too late because the young stars he had at the perfect time in their lives and the perfect scenarios, which was in early 1984, had by then moved on to greener pastures. By 1992, the same person, no less intelligent, was completely out of place because the industry and its fans had totally changed, but he held to those same basic truisms that had become false. The same truisms that put all those of his era, with one exception since he never believed those truisms to begin with, out of business. After that week in March of 1985, for economic reasons as much as anything else, the regional promotions were pretty much all doomed because the money in the industry switched from running 7 nights a week to building to big shows, and the national promotions had the advantage of pay-per-view marketing to turn the old version of a huge house of $100,000 to potential multi-million-dollar evenings. A good national group could take in more money on a strong night than a strong regional could in a strong year. Talent all wants to be where the money is, And pro wrestling isn't yet a strong enough or diverse enough part of the American culture that fans of the sport will in great numbers support what they believe to be minor league talent when they have a major league alternative. Somehow Jerry Jarrett survived all this, but he was the only one, and even his business has never since nor never will reach its pre-1985 level. This is not the obituary of WWF or WCW, or a prediction that AAA will take the United States by storm. But that era has been on the downslide for a few years, and the only way for wrestling to rebound is with a new era and new concepts. That's more than coming up with a slogan. That's coming up with a reality. The situation is this. WWF is surviving largely on one thing. The initials WWF. Those initials just 3 years ago were a part of the U.S. entertainment scene of a strong cult level of significance, and of late have been an even stronger part of the European entertainment scene as some American fad imported across the ocean. In addition, they tailor-made for pay-per-view events that got in on the ground floor as a new medium of entertainment was reaching America. Pay-per-view wrestling is here to stay and will be the prime medium for making money no matter how the business creative-wise changes. They also capitalized on the surge of cable television looking for product time to hit a strong niche audience, something pro wrestling always had, actually more so before the WWF revolution. We are primed and ready for this with the so-called information explosion and 500-channel cable said to be just a few years away. WWF got in on the ground floor and made a mint. The key for the rebirth is getting in on the ground floor of the next wave. Ironically, the company in the cable television driver's seat, the old Georgia Championship Wrestling Company, had no idea what it had and even less of an idea of how to pull it off, still being blinded by adhering to the past. WCW survived because it was on life support systems from Turner Broadcasting, which used the group to fill television time with new programming that drew largely decent ratings, and gave them hope of turning around the mountains of red ink because of the future economic potential of pay-per-view, something pro wrestling is tailor-made for. Today WCW is in the process of losing its core audience, which was an audience too small for it to economically be viable, something its core audience, many of whom read this publication, has to accept because it is now historical fact. We all know the blundering involved and the reasons, and it could have been different if things had been different 5 years ago, but the past is only something to learn from, not something to try and redo. Those hoping for the return of the Ric Flair who was the greatest of all time should let it go and accept Flair's place in history and prime themselves to watch a new wave wrestler learn from Flair's style, modernize it, and surpass him. It won't be easy, but someday, and it may take a long time, it will happen. Today and next year and maybe the year after, WCW will survive based on two things: Hulk Hogan and Uncle Ted's money. Double H is a star and he is a celebrity, and his name means far more than any other when it comes to general public name recognition. But he is also living off a reputation from the past, and his fame is that of a guy who used to be a big deal in the culture. He's closer to Bob Dylan than to the Rolling Stones, but since wrestling doesn't have any Rolling Stones, or any ideas on what new bands are out there, he's the best WCW is going to come up with. This translates into some casual audience interest in him on special live shows and pay-per-view, although not in week-to-week storylines. But like WWF, they are surviving off a reputation from the past. And like WWF, and despite a slogan to the contrary, they are presenting a tired product form of pro wrestling that is losing viewers and fans faster than it is gaining new fans. Never was that more obvious than in the past week. Forget about buy rates of the AAA and UWF pay-per-view shows, because those groups are in their infancy and that venue and buy rates are determined by marketing and exposure levels. Neither group had anything to speak of in either category. Multi-channel news is reporting the AAA show will do an estimated 0.3 buy rate, other sources are pegging the figure at 0.25, or approximately 55,000 buys and an estimated $500,000 after split gross. Which, considering the exposure level in this country and marketing force behind it, has to be considered a miracle when compared with what WWF and WCW are doing nowadays with an exponentially greater push, hype and exposure levels. If that's the case, the show will break even or be marginally profitable, which would show that as a product, they are, to borrow an expression, almost bulletproof. That takes on dual meaning since their partners on the show almost appeared to have been shooting at them in many cases instead of promoting them. Done correctly, the product is a winner. UWF is not a guaranteed winner by any means, and as the poll showed, after its first pay-per-view did quite well, it hasn't held up as far as interest is concerned due to failure to capitalize on the first show. But they brought something new to wrestling on November 11th, realism, drama, believable brutality without gratuitous violence, and strategy, all coming from the best announcing on any wrestling show in years in Sam Rosen, New York Rangers play-by-play voice, and Jeff Blatnick, 1980 Olympic gold medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling. Rosen and Blatnick, like AAA's Mike Tenay, were both doing their first pro wrestling broadcast ever, and when 3 announcers in the past week, all doing the first ever pro wrestling event, all were better than almost all full-time announcers, it really exposes just how bad the current crop are. There are numerous things I've learned and opinions that have been shaped about pro wrestling and the business by the events of the past week. 1. When put in almost a test marketing position as a new product as Sunday's show was, AAA is a huge success, to both those who are and aren't traditional pro wrestling fans. The group it may have the most problems with is the traditional older wrestling fan, although it did well with that demo as well as exemplified by the poll, who won't accept it because it isn't the wrestling they learned and grew up with. If it attempts to change to satisfy that group or to satisfy American promoters, it's doomed. 2. Those in charge of the wrestling business in America have proven themselves dinosaurs this past week, not because the AAA or UWF put on good pay-per-view shows, but because they weren't willing to open their minds to new concepts. Those shows introduced the classic symptom of the Bill Watts disease. Eric Bischoff, the young new breed of wrestling exec, was not only not even at the show where he could have learned more new in one night in Los Angeles about both the work in the ring and how to put on a show than he has in the last 37 years of his life, didn't even watch the show on pay-per-view. He instead took this past week off to go on a hunting trip. Others in the company saw the show, most liked it, some didn't, most realized it was a huge success as a show, but did any understand why? That's not a negative either, nor does it make them dinosaurs. What makes them dinosaurs is that after it was over and it was an obvious success, almost nobody asked questions as to how and why, and nobody was thinking of lessons learned by the show that could be used to elevate their own product. What makes them dinosaurs is that in Los Angeles, 3 of AAA's first 4 house shows leading up to this drew more money than any show in the history of WCW, and nobody from WCW took the time to try and find out why. Will WCW promote faster-paced, more high-flying, innovative matches? Will their announcers try to put reality into their broadcasts? Will they change the type of wrestler they hire? Will they elevate the quality of television matches? Will they modernize the ring introductions and have better quality entrance music? In this regard, WCW was joined by various other people within the wrestling establishment that make their livings covering a business that has already gone through some major changes and is about to go through more. Some are my friends, some aren't, but I urge you all to please heed the example of one cowboy and don't get caught in the same trap when the business changes. Just as in 1984, a lot of people had to play catch-up to catch the wave, a lot of others got caught up in the wave and never made it back to shore. The regional territories aren't what's coming back. A variety of styles, all the ones that have a chance of making it being different from what is being offered by WWF and WCW today, on pay-per-view and cable, is what's coming in and has a chance, more of a chance now than ever before. 3. I have no idea if Vince McMahon watched the show or not. But Titan, while the most innovative wrestling company in the world during its heyday, has failed to learn or try anything new except pushing smaller guys, largely forced on them rather than by choice, and copying live show production values from the NBA and NHL, which foreign groups had picked up on 2 years earlier, over the past few years. The key is, Titan learned very little from the Japanese in recent years, to the point they arrogantly brought their dated product to Japan this past spring, looked up their noses at those there who tried to teach them to bring it to 1994, and died in the country where pro wrestling is far more popular than any other. Forget about saying Bret Hart can't draw or Undertaker isn't drawing. The WWF's problem, besides lack of talent depth, which is a huge problem, is they failed to maintain what made them number one, being ahead of the pack. They stayed ahead of the pack in the US recent years because the pack never moved, not because they kept moving, but lost that position on an international level. On a world scene, the pack passed them by several years ago and they still haven't realized it, and hopefully this weekend will wake them up to that fact. The Japanese were the new innovators in this business after McMahon's era and they failed to pick up anything from them. 4. Today's new innovator when it comes to presenting a live product is Antonio Peña. And why? In 1994, Peña will have attended New Japan's Tokyo Dome, WWF's WrestleMania, WCW's Bash at the Beach, All Japan Women's Tokyo Dome, not to mention run several major shows himself. He sat there and graded the matches and the shows. How many major shows from other promotions did Bischoff attend? 1. New Japan's Fukuoka Dome. How many concepts did he bring back with him from Japan? How many did McMahon attend? 0. McMahon is a brilliant guy in his own way, but it's scary to see him act like Watts would in the same circumstances, and even Watts attended 3 nights of New Japan at Sumo Hall and paid great attention but conceptually only picked up what he already knew, which is, since he already knows and understands it better than anyone, there's nothing left to learn from others. The day you hit that position is the day time starts passing you by. This past week is the warning call to both promotions. Both are not on top in this country, for whatever being on top is worth, because they present better house shows, better pay-per-view shows, or more creative television than anyone else, despite what they may delude themselves into believing. They are on top because of greater exposure and an established base of fans. Both groups have one significant thing: the initials WWF or the name Hulk Hogan, that allows them to have something of a following based on clinging to the dwindling audience of the past. Remember Hogan's own words some 8 years ago about pro wrestling was going nowhere, catering to the old and dwindling audience. Remember those words. Whether Pena and those associated with him such as Ron Skoler can capitalize as a story for 1995 and 1996, and there are probably 2 reasons they can for every reason they can. But to deny that Pena is the new innovator when it comes to producing shows and his wrestlers are when it comes to ring style, as stated here 2 weeks ago, after last Sunday, is to bury one's head in the sand. The next few months will tell the tale, but if Titan fails to learn from the new innovators, Vince McMahon is on the road to becoming Bill Watts. He's got the advantage that he's got a past he can survive off for several more years, just as if Watts maintained his position with WCW, the company would have survived but it never would have increased its popularity. The scary sign that may be closer to the truth than anyone realizes comes from McMahon himself in his 10/5 television interview with Chet Kopic, where he stated, "There's a big difference in philosophy in what we do as compared to the wrestling of old." After 10 years of saying that, he hasn't realized the sad point. In 1995, what he does, is the wrestling of old. 5. Jeff Blatnick on Friday night did the single greatest job of color commentary in the modern history of pro wrestling. He redefined the role. It's a shame nobody saw it, but don't let the lesson to be learned from it go to waste. No, he specifically probably would never do a WWF or WCW style pro wrestling broadcast, and his style wouldn't fit like a glove as it did with UWFI, but the key job of the announcer on any form of pro wrestling is a universal thing: to get the product over and make it interesting to the viewers, and Blatnick excelled in that role. The UWFI pay-per-view show was the first show made by the announcers. Forget about Mike Tenay, although Tenay himself recognized the job Blatnick did and was in awe of it. Blatnick, who is also signed to do a color on UFC 4, was in another league. Granted, he had one major advantage, doing a post-produced instead of a live show, an advantage everyone working in traditional pro wrestling has every week on television. But his style exposed just how tired the old really is. In 1985, Jesse Ventura ushered in a new era, and the rest of the world copied. The heel commentator giving the babyface announcer heat and coming up with cute one-liners. It was different and it was cool. Bobby Heenan took that role and eventually surpassed Ventura. After Heenan comes the parade of imitators, from Jerry Lawler, who is a very funny individual playing an extremely stale role who has really gone downhill of late, to Randy Savage, who has been awful for a long time, to Larry Zbyszko. That's why Tenay, and more so Blatnick, were so impressive this past week. They gave the show's credibility, a lost quality and something badly needed in a product which destroyed its popularity through its own excesses and can't regain its lost audience because it severed credibility with them years ago. Todd Pettingle is a great young version of Gene Okerlund. But hopefully Pettingle realizes that could be a big problem. Gene Okerlund is a dinosaur clinging to his past glory. The role-playing announcers and Carnival Barker pitchmen are beyond stale, and if their sell jobs worked so well, how could pro wrestling and pro wrestling type acts with no sell jobs of the type at all and no television be doing a similar number of buys? The monkey see monkey do followers who only know one way to produce pro wrestling television copy the 1987 WWF ideas, but with poorer execution and production, have turned the product into a parody of itself that for a turnaround in business, it needs to totally break away from. By not only really understanding the product, ironic since Lawler and Savage have wrestled for 20 years, while Tenay never stepped foot in a ring and Blatnick has never worked, they are selling and how to sell it without coming off as con men, liars or fake characters, but having the ability to bring their understanding to a viewing public that doesn't. They expose just how outdated the rest of the pack are. Instead of hitting their audience in the head with points which because of credibility problems, the audience doesn't accept to begin with, they subtly taught them what was going on without offending or talking down to them in the process. Blatnick made the slowest spots in a match exciting because every move and every spot was made as part of a multifaceted grand strategy, and his post-match commentary sold a rematch far stronger than any obviously contrived hype job has been able to in a long time. He also understood that while Rosen had the vocal cords and announcing skill and ability to generate excitement, he didn't have the wrestling knowledge, and it was his job to get all the points across, and he aggressively did so, which would be the knock on TNA not wanting to get in the way of Cruz's fall by fall when there were points in the match due to storyline or knowledge of AAA that Cruz didn't pick up through no fault of his own but simply because he wasn't as familiar with the product. To Blatnick's credit, he also didn't knock American-style pro wrestling even though he had numerous openings to do so, and most former amateur wrestlers relish the opportunity to knock the pros. Think about this. With no television show, no marquee names, and no publicity machine behind it, UFC 4, which is nothing more than a remake of the original lure of pro wrestling, next month may beat the numbers on pay-per-view that the biggest name in modern history with tons of television publicity could pull off 10 days later. The public inherently wants to see a form of combat, either fake or real. But after the sports entertainment style has grown stale, people want something new, and groups with minuscule publicity and comparison with WWF and WCW are doing numbers on pay-per-view that aren't in the WWF's league, but aren't all that far off WCW's buy rates. The form offered by the Big Two, a misnomer that was exposed in this country Sunday if ever there was one, has runs its course and is surviving off its past glory. It will survive, don't get me wrong, because it's established and pay-per-view is here to stay and enough money can be made to keep WWF financially viable for a long time and WCW breathing until somebody can convince Uncle Ted otherwise. But with correct promotion after 12 to 18 months of two-language exposure, AAA would surpass WCW on pay-per-view. It already has surpassed WCW as far as Livegate is concerned. There is a place in pro wrestling for one Bobby Heenan or someone like that if they are uniquely talented, and as someone different and thus special. But the role has been so overexposed that, forget about Hogan, the addition of Heenan to WCW broadcasts for nearly 1 year has resulted in no movement in cable rating, weaker syndicated ratings and numerous time-slot demotions and cancellations. Heenan doesn't deserve the blame, it's a declining business, but as talented as he is, he no longer draws viewers to the shows because he's one of many playing the same role. It's the time for several Jeff Blatnick and Mike Tenay's, if there are any others of that caliber around, to take center stage and allow those different from them once again to be something special. The role of a Jerry Lawler, Ted DiBiase, and Randy Savage, not those individuals but the current role they play as part of a television broadcast, are obsolete. The quicker those in charge realize it's time for sweeping changes, the quicker they will be to being cutting edge instead of surviving off remnants of the past and having their audience continue to dwindle. 6. Don't think I've forgotten that the best new style TV show in the world is produced in the United States and that not all the innovators are from another country. The ECW show is getting better by the week. ECW, by its overly violent nature, is limited in appeal, but it is on the verge of being a major cult force in the industry if it gets the right exposure. It will never be the #1 promotion in the United States, but there's no crime in that if it reaches a certain level of success and can build itself to the point it can produce profitable pay-per-view shows, which is the future of wrestling. Forget about building the company around house shows. That's also living in the past. ECW isn't ready for pay-per-view right now because it doesn't have the exposure to do it profitably, but for it to make it, it would be to build up to several pay-per-view per year, that won't do the big business others do, but are at least strong enough to be profitable. If it can appeal to and garner its own audience and create a new audience elsewhere, the groups that will be making it aren't going to do so by retrieving older or lost fans but by creating younger and newer fans that aren't fans or at least have no fan loyalty to WWF or WCW. It can become the United States version of FMW, with a higher quality of wrestlers. Let's not kid ourselves, FMW is one of the great success stories in modern pro wrestling. When was the last time any of the so-called major offices in the world, besides New Japan, drew 52,000 people to a show? Only in their promotional wet dreams. ECW is missing only two ingredients: exposure, and a certain wrestler to break through mainstream like Onita did to sell the product past the very limited hardcore wrestling fan audience. Of course those are the two most difficult ingredients in every wrestling recipe. 7. I don't think WWF, I can make it in the United States, but I'm less positive of that statement after Friday. The company put its best foot forward, and it was an impressive foot at that. They presented matches that looked both real and believable, and also were exciting, combining both brutality and psychology. Stylistically, right now it's a new concept to the American audience, too much like pro wrestling to be real, too real to be pro wrestling, with guys nobody has heard of, and an appeal similar to amateur wrestling, none. The US audience would be picking up a book and starting in Chapter 8 when the first 7 chapters are necessary to set the stage. While the same could be true for AAA, it has wider-based appeal since it's more a show than hardcore sport. Judging from the response here, unlike the AAA show, this may have been the giant redwood falling in the empty forest. Nobody saw it. The problem it has in making it are more than others, because he doesn't have a base following or a hardcore following to build from. What it does have is an individual who has already proven he has the ability and charisma to break through as a celebrity in Nobuhiko Takada. Culturally, even the American promoters who ran the pay-per-view know that no matter how much talent and charisma Takada has, because of language and that little tad of racism, he can't be the one to carry the product here. 8. The babyface/heel era is on its way out. There will always be good guys and bad guys in pro wrestling, just as there will always be the home team against the visiting team in sports. But the visitors to drain real heat don't have to take on unbelievably comedic roles or exaggerated roles. The outrageous overplayed characters are on the way out. Look at the total failure of the Gangstas, which should have gotten the most heat of anything in wrestling, but it drifted too far. Hulk Hogan's the biggest draw, but throwing out the manipulations, half the people don't like him at all, although they'll still pay to see him. AAA was refreshing in that while its heels wrestle dirtier, they don't overplay the roles as heels to ridiculous proportions, and if the fans cheer them, nobody seems to care since they paid their money to get in. ECW, in appealing to a renegade group, has everyone play traditional heel, but in reality has little in the way of baby faces and heels. Japan has been like this for 10 years. People love Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Nobody gives a rat's ass about Lex Luger, although they'll pop for him when the music plays. People don't take the role seriously. They never could do enough to get people to really hate Ric Flair, no matter how hard they tried. Those overplayed roles can garner the Pavlovian response when they do the Pavlovian spots or musical pops, but what the AAA show exposed, and even UWF, to a totally different degree, is none of the crowd response comes from the heart. Lost in the fact that Pero Aguayo did no moonsaults or topes was that this 48-year-old, they had the age wrong on the pay-per-view, he turns 49 in January. Man with limited ability walked from the ring, covered in blood, and woman 30 years younger wanted to kiss him, and not in a sex symbol or even a TV star kind of way. They reacted from the heart, not because they had been programmed by illusions created by mirrors on television that were exposed at the live arena, like when seeing what appear on television with sweetened sound and post-production to be super over WWF and WCW wrestlers live and nobody cares or reacts. Check out the crowd reaction at the second Takada Albright fight and contrast it with 1-2-3 Kid and Razor Ramon vs Shawn Michaels and Diesel, which was in most ways a better match. When Takada was in trouble, there was a real tenseness, and when he won, there was a real explosion from the crowd. In the great WWF TV match of a few weeks ago with hot moves, a storyline, and a great last 5 o'clock of false finishes, I couldn't help but notice the steady stream throughout the match of fans walking around, not watching the ring, talking to their friends, going to the snack stand and watching this great match, one of the best TV matches of the year without a doubt, but not being into it to the point the match gripped them and took them over. The performance of the wrestlers couldn't be faulted. It was the product base that had failed the wrestlers. I thought that was something that was gone in wrestling watching that match, and saw it was still there 1 week later. If anyone in the hierarchy of American wrestling, seeing Pero Aguayo leave the ring on Sunday, still dismissed the reaction because the crowd was largely Mexican-American, they may have seen the show with their eyes but completely missed the show with their head. 9. Different is what makes it big, and when the old style is dying out, it's time for completely different. We've already seen that the steroid monster type that used to get over no matter how little they could work, dating back to the Road Warriors and their clones, doesn't sell anymore. One of the lures of Royce Gracie is he's the smallest guy there. Takada, like Inoki before him, is a hero because the people believe he's capable of beating monsters. Before this current era, probably the greatest era in Japanese wrestling for business was the early 1980s New Japan. And while Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid were not responsible for it, they added a major dimension to it and did create a product niche that exists and thrives to this day. The United States has never had its Tiger Mask, The charismatic gimmick hero to the kids who eventually wins the respect of the wrestling fans because he's got too much ability to deny. American promoters have never known how to get it over. All they had to do was see how New Japan got Tiger Mask over and they'd be 50% there. The other 50% is finding the right guy to fill the spot. They had the chance for the first time with Jushin Liger, but we all saw how well that was handled. And also, because it was wrestlers running offices, Watts was in charge when WCW bungled up Liger's potential, who kept the truism alive that junior heavyweights could never draw money, a truism made ridiculous by Argentina Rocca and Gorgeous George on a national basis a generation ago. The US has never had anyone that was put in the position to be the original Tiger Mask. There is someone who is 3 years away from being this generation's and this country's Tiger Mask, and he's an American. He steals the show every night, has ability, charisma, durability and moves to pop eyeballs out. He can do it every night and has the durability to come back the next night and do it all over again. He can be a crossover star due to ability, an ethnic hero due to background, and a kids hero and merchandise seller due to gimmick, all at the same time. In 3 years, he'll be 22 years old and tons better than he is now because he improves noticeably every month when it comes to working ability. The guy who got over to a new audience last week as much as anyone on a show filled with more great wrestling than any other big show on pay-per-view this year. Rey Mysterio Jr. And the way things are now, he's the last guy on the show that would be considered by an American group ridiculously too small. The reaction within wrestling to this suggestion would be it's the biggest joke ever suggested and proof that the person suggesting it doesn't know the first thing about wrestling. That's why it would work huge if handled correctly, which would mean to do it in a manner totally different than anything done in this country and in a manner where he's protected from his true lack of size being exposed in comparison with heavyweight wrestlers. Satoru Sayama was 5'6", 165 when he first got over, and he never would have gotten over had he been put in regularly with large men that would expose his lack of size. Got over in a country where pro wrestling had been previously dominated by big men. Got over in a country where there was no history of anyone that size ever meaning anything at the gate. Got over far more than any wrestler is over in our country today or will be for years. Got over to the point that 8 years after he retired, when videos of his matches were released, they grossed millions of dollars. Such was the lasting impact of his legend because sons wanted to see what their fathers had told them about and little brothers wanted to see what big brothers had told them. Got over so big that he still can be a guest on TV talk shows and everyone knows who he is even though he's done almost nothing in years, and when he's on, they still air clips of his matches from 1981-83, 11 to 13 years after the fact. Got over to the point he set the stage for viable promotions within his country to be filled with men his size or smaller. Please tell me that will be the case with Bret Hart, Undertaker, Sting or even Ric Flair. In 3 years, barring injury and with the right kind of promotion, the key part of the equation which isn't going to happen, Rey Mysterio Jr. will be more marketable in this country than Shawn Michaels. He has more potential in the United States than in Mexico, because in Mexico they've seen plenty of guys like him who are almost as good as him. For the same reason Satoru Sayama got over bigger in Japan than in Mexico because there are more smaller wrestlers in Mexico. Mysterio Jr. is different enough to be a major star in Mexico at his size but not different enough to be a revelation. The US has never seen anyone like him. Michaels may end up being the greatest worker of all time, but he'll never be a revelation. 6 star 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 6 stars 5 stars star. I presented its third pay-per-view show on November 11, a taped 150 show billed as Shoot Wrestling 3. The show aired 6 matches, 4 of which were from a show taped 6 tenths at Tokyo's Budokan Hall. The announcers, doing the commentary in studio months later via post-production, were giving the impression it was live. It was the best of the group's 3 efforts on pay-per-view, both from a presentation and match quality standpoint. The storyline of the show was largely built around building to the main event, a match with Gary Albright against Nobuhiko Takada. Takada was billed as Japan's #1 shoot wrestler with no acknowledgement of Takada's World Heavyweight title, which he had at the time the match was taped but has since lost to Vader, which the first 2 pay-per-view shows were built around. They built the match from the beginning, showed both men warming up before the match and did an interview with Albright, and ran bumpers throughout the show continuing the hype. Even though they were new people to the majority of the viewing audience, by the time they reached the main event, the viewer was not only familiar with them but excited to see them wrestle. They introduced the highest degree of realism to the match as any pro wrestling match in recent memory. They then aired a short clip of the first match between the two in 1992, which Albright won, and a lengthy clip showing most of their second match, which Takada won, which was an outstanding match. After airing a great main event match, with Albright's size, power and suplex ability contrasted by Takada's speed, stamina and striking ability, which Takada won via submission after making a comeback with a devastating flurry of kicks, they did an interview with Albright and an excellent commentary from Blatnick on what Albright would need to do to win a rematch, which actually takes place on 11/30. The show opened with Hiromitsu Kanehara beating sometime WCW jobber Tom Burton in a very stiff typical UWF-I-style prelim match. Burton did a believable sports-like interview after the match. Then came a great match with Steve Nelson, who I believe is the son of former pro wrestler Gordon Mr. Wrestling Nelson, an American champion in Samba, submission, wrestling teaming with Gene Lydic against Masahito Kakihara and Kazushi Sakuraba. Kakihara was amazing with his hand and foot speed. He and Kiyoshi Tamura are the future of this promotion. This match was brutal with excellent psychology and hot moves and was both realistic and entertaining at the same time. If the style reaches the level that matches are consistently at this level, combined with the all-important exposure, this group has a chance. Sakuraba was the weak link in the match and the American team kept him in the ring most of the way, which gave the match almost an American tag team-like psychology. But Sakuraba was impressive in his own right, particularly when considering he's only a rookie, especially in his explosive comebacks. Nelson finally suplexed Sakuraba on his head, tagged to Lydic who put him away via knockout after a belly-to-back suplex and an unprotected German suplex. The brutality and believability aspect was sold great after the match during an interview where they showed Nelson's thigh bruised up beyond belief. Next up was Billy Scott, best known for being Takada's Rocky-like opponent on the first pay-per-view show, against UWF-I's largest Japanese wrestler, 6'5" Yoshihiro Takayama. Takayama looked green and because of long limbs and a high center of gravity, actually made his height appear to be a disadvantage, something the commentators pointed out, which also sells the idea of having shorter guys as stars. The match started slow. It was the worst match on the show, but had a good finish with Scott using a leg drag into a half crab for the submission. The final prelim match saw Naoki Sano, best known for his matches of the year with Jushin Liger in 1990 while with New Japan, teaming with Yoji Angio against former Russian amateur greats Vladimir Berkovich and Viktor Zangiev. Unlike the rest of the show, this match was actually taped on August 18 at the same Budokan Hall. Zangiev has gained some weight and wasn't as impressive as in Shoot Wrestling 2. Berkovich is really out of shape now and looked bad. The finish saw Angio batter Zangiev with kicks leading to a very believable-looking knockout. On television it looked far better than the knockout George Foreman delivered 1 week earlier. Even though the working aspect of this match wasn't great because of the Russians, the blows at the end gave it enough realism that it was watchable and successful in getting the style over. 6 star 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 6 stars 5 stars star. By the time you get this issue, we'll be in Japan covering the All Japan Women's Tokyo Dome show on November 20th. Next week's issue will be out as soon as possible after that show, but it may be impossible to get it out by the normal Wednesday mailing and there is no mail on Thursday because of Thanksgiving. It will be out no later than Friday, but I'm aiming for Wednesday. The issue will have whatever news headlines there are from the United States over the coming week, along with an extensive report on the Clash of Champions from Jacksonville on November 16th. This will be the final issue of the 4-issue set. We will at least have the results of the ECW and NWA tournament shows both on November 19th, although we may not go into detail on those two shows until the following week. The first issue of the next set will go out on time with Survivor Series, SMW Thanksgiving Thunder and catching up on whatever US news we missed while overseas. If you've got A1 on your label, it means your subscription expires with the next issue, but if you wait for that issue to arrive to renew, you'll get the first issue of the next set several days late because there will be a quick turnaround from one issue to the next. Renewal rates within the United States, Canada and Mexico remain $8 for 4 issues, $15 for 8, $22 for 12, $28 for 16, $42 for 24, $56 for 32 up through $70 for 40 issues. Rates for the rest of the world are $11 for 4, $21 for 8, $30 for 12, $50 for 20, $70 for 28 up through $100 for 40 issues. All subscription renewals along with reports from live shows, letters to the editor, news items and any other correspondence pertaining to this newsletter should be sent to the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, P.O. Box 1228, Campbell, California 950091228. Fax messages can be sent to the Observer afternoon Eastern Time on a daily basis to 408-378-6562. Phone messages can be left 24 hours a day at 408-379-8067. Results of readers' polls can be left either by fax or phone. For the most up-to-the-minute news updates, I can be reached every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the Real Wrestling Hotline, 900-903-9030/99 cents per minute. Results 10/12 Cuautla, Morelos, AAA, Mascarada Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto B La Parquita and Espectrito, Heavy Metal and Winners and Supercolo B Tony Arce and Volcano and Rocco Valente DQ, Super Muñeco and Lizmark and Mascara Sagrada B Los Payasos 1019 Naucalapan, EMLL, Carta Brava Jr. B Angel Exterminador, Estallido and Zumbito B Cortado and Junior Maravilla, Ciclone Ramirez and Nuevo Huracan Ramirez Jr. and El Hijo de Huracan Ramirez B Pirata Morgan Jr. and Zandokan II, Ray Bucanero, Emilio Charles Jr. and Felino and Zandokan IB Hayabusa and El Texano and Silver King DQ 1025 Mexico City Arena Coliseo, EMLL, Xavier Roca and Angel de Plata B Supremo 2 and Nuevo Links, one-night tag team tournament for Oro Cup, Apollo Dantes and Dandy B Hayabusa and Ultimo Dragon, Negro Casas and Emilio Charles Jr. B Javier Cruz and Cacho Mendoza, Pierre Roth Jr. and El Satanico B Brazo de Oro and Brazo de Plata Louisiana Fiera and Ringo Mendoza B Dr. Wagner Jr. and Gran Marcus Jr., Dantes and Dandy B Charles and Casas, Satanico and Pierre Roth B Mendoza and Fiera, Dantes and Dandy B Satanico and Pierre Roth to win tournament 1025 Ectespec, UWA, Cassandro and Lobo Rubio B Rio Tapatia and Oriental, Rocky Santana and Negro Navarro and Lobo Rubio DDQ Mr. Jack and Villanos 3 and 4, UA HWT title, Connect B Scorpio Jr. 1027 Mexico City Pista Arena Revolucion, EMLL, Colt B Jr. Maravilla, Babe Richard and Cerebro B Fantastic and Cundilan, Cortado and MS1 and MS1 Jr. B Quarterback and Cadid 2000 and Aguila Solitario, Atlantis and Ringo Mendoza and Blue Demon Jr. B Sangre Chicana and Grand Chic and Jock Mate, Rayo de Jalisco Jr. B Pierre Roth Jr. DQ 1028 Mexico City Arena Mexico, EMLL, Lady Apache and Cynthia Moreno B Lady Star and La Diabolica, Moger and Mocho Cota and El Hijo del Gladiador B Super Astro and Blue Demon Jr. and El Hijo del Solitario, Atlantis and Negro Casas and Rayo de Jalisco Jr. B Black Magic and Sangre Chicana and Bestia Salvaje, NWALTHWT title, Jacques Mate B La Fiera Corps, Mask vs Mask, Felino B Justiciero, Unmasked as Marcos Contreras, 39, from Mexico City, 1028 Netzahual Coyote, UWA, 500, Alastafuego and Guerrero Valiente B Desafio and Tempestad, Gran Petronio and Cassandro B Gamma and El Signo and Negro Navarro and Rocky Santana B Seminarista and Blackman 2 and Principe Maya, Scorpio Jr. and Mr. Jack and Shuel Guerrero B the King and Karloff Lagarde Jr. and Gran Hamada, WWF LTHWT title, Viano 3B Transformer 1029 Bridgeton Maine, New England Pro Wrestling, Shane Simons B Mark Williams, Steve Stallion B Dragonfly, Rip Morrison B Skull, Captain USA DDQ Loverboy Baron, Big City Mike B Bruiser Costa, Johnny Royal B Superbad Steve, Sergeant Muldoon B Bob Evans 1030 Scranton, Pennsylvania, WWF, Jim Powers B Abe Schwartz, Duke Drees B IRS, Adam Bomb B Bam Bam Bigelow, Bart Gunn B Tom Pritchard, Lex Luger Tatanka, WWF title, Bret Hart B Jim Neidhart, Casket Match, Undertaker B Yokozuna 1030 Torione, Coahuila, AAA, 6500, Mayflowers and Rudy Reyna and Pimpinela Escarlata B Zafiro and Brillante and Diamante, Latin Lover and Stuka and Heavy Metal B Jerry Estrada and Espondo Jr. and Fishman, Mascara Sagrada and Lizmark Jr. and Phantasma B La Parca and Dracula, Radamez Coco aka Massacre, and Espectro, Mexican. Middleweight title, Blue Panther B Mariachi, Conan El Barbaro and Love Machine and Madonna's Boyfriend and King Lion, Sanguinario, B Octagon and El Hijo del Santo and Lizmark and Perro Aguayo 1031 Monclova, AAA, 3500, Rey Mysterio Jr. and Heavy Metal and Latin Lover B Tony Arce and Volcano and Rocco Valente, Blue Panther and Fuerza Guerrera and Fishman B Mascara Sagrada and Winners and El Hijo del Santo, Conan El Barbaro and Love Machine and King Lion and Madonna's Boyfriend BCN Caras and Mascara Año 2000 and Universo 2000 and La Parca, Hair vs Hair, Jerry Estrada B. Stuka 11/3 Indianapolis, Circle City Wrestling, 172, Bone Crusher Lewis B. American Eagle, Danny Davis, Flash Flanagan Kerr Doug Basham, Lewis B. Gordy Jones, Heartthrobs DDQ Eliminators, Barroom Brawler B. Mike Samples 11/4 Inman South Carolina, Pro Wrestling Federation, 85, Russian Assassin No. 1, Ray Hudson, B. Greg Hart, Larry Skipper, Emilio Elisha B. Too Hot Thomas DQ, Chris Hamerick B. Black Scorpion, Hudson, Star Rider, Hudson, and Randy Sledge B. Thomas and Russian Assassin No. 3. Skipper, Italian Stallion B. Terry Austin 11/5 Concord, NC, East Coast Championship Wrestling, 170, Hairbreak Express B. Cruel Connection, Dan Cooley B. Ricky Nelson DQ, Bobby Rose B. Super Rocker, Don Hebert, David Deisley and Colt Steele and Big Cheese, Sal Corante, B. Jimmy Valiant and Willie Clay and Rick Link, Billy Simmons B. Thunderfoot, Gary Royal 11/7 Memphis, Aswa, 2500, Sergeant Victor, Victor Lewis, B. Tony Williams, Spellbinder B. Doug Basham, Aswa Tag Titles, Moondogs B. Phantoms Mississippi Texas B. Scott Bowden, Street Fight Doug Gilbert B. Buddy Landell, Aswa Title, Brian Christopher B. Tommy Rich DQ, Christopher 1 Moondog Battle Royal, Unified Title, Sid Vicious B. Undertaker DQ 11/7 Chiba, War, 2300, Mikiko Futagami B. Michiko Omukai, Miki Handa and Cynthia Moreno B. Maria Del Angel and Carol Midori, Hiroshi Itakura B. Masanobu Kurisu, Rock and Roll Express B. Yuji Yasurioka and Nobukazu Hirai, Koki Kitahara and Animal Hamaguchi B. Gedo and Jado, NWA Middleweight Title, Lionheart B. Ultimo Dragon, Hiramichi Fuyuki B. aka Oni, Genichiro Tenryu B. Kendo Nagasaki 11/7 Gainesville, Florida, Florida Major League Wrestling, 400, Warlord B. Lord Humongous, Gator B. Long, Bugsy McGraw B. Greg Valentine DQ, Phi Delta Slam B. Heavy Equipment, Freight Train Jimmy Rogers and Steve Collins, Lou Perez B. Hercules, Penelope Paradise B. Señorita Con La Mascara, Hercules 1 Battle Royal 11/7 Muskogee, OK, Power Zone Wrestling Alliance, 212, Treach Phillips Jr. B. Doug Masters, Nightmare B. J. Rocker, Casey Cannon B. Sean Summers, Tom Jones B. The Ninja DQ, Chief Running Eagle B. Chains, Randy Rhodes B. Butch Reed DQ 11/8 Bushkill, Pennsylvania, WWF Superstars and Sunday Night Slam Tapings, 1500, Non-Squash Results, Jerry Lawler B. Doink the Clown 1 star, Davey Boy Smith B. Bam Bam Bigelow DQ, Smoking Guns B. Heavenly Bodies 3 1/4 stars, Smith B. Owen Hart DQ 2 3/4 stars, WWF Title, Bret Hart B. Bob Backlund Dud, Casket Match, Undertaker B. Yokozuna 11/8 Louisville, USWA, Sergeant Victor B. Doug Basham, Spellbinder B. Brian Fletcher, Aswa Tag Title, Moondogs B. Phantoms, Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert B. Buddy Landell and Brian Christopher, Christopher 1 Moondog Battle Royal, Unified Title, Lex Luger B. Sid Vicious DQ. 11/8 Atlanta Center Stage, WCW Saturday Night Taping, 750/all freebies, Non-Squash Results, The Patriot and Marcus Bagwell B. Bunkhouse Buck and Arnold Anderson 11/8 Tokyo Karaku and Hall, War, 2000 Sellout, Cynthia Moreno B. Maria Del Angel, Masanobu Kurisu B. Yuji Yasurioka, Hiroshi Itakura B. Nobukazu Hirai, Masao Orihara B. Nariaki Mochizuki, NWA Indiwa Middleweight Title Unification Match, Ultimo Dragon B. Lionheart 2051, aka Oni and Kendo Nagasaki B. Rock and Roll Express, War 6-Man Titles, Gedo and Jado and Hiramichi Fuyuki B. Koki Kitahara and Animal Hamaguchi and Genichiro Tenryu 4256 and 11/8 Sendai, War, 602, Naohiro Hoshikawa and Masato Yakashiji B. Wellington Wilkins Jr. and Katsubo, Takamichi Noku and Grananiwa B. Terry Boy and Mascara Magica, Super Delphin and Jinsei Shinzaki B. Blackman and Hanzo Nakajima, Sato and Shiryu B. Pantera 2 and Kendo 11/8 Kobe, All Japan Women, 2150, Kanayama B. Kato, Misoki Watanabe B. Nobuendo, Rita Mata and Kumiko Maekawa B. Takahashi and Chaparita Sari, Etsuko Mita and Mima Shimoda B. Tomoko Watanabe and Suzuka Minami, Kaoru Ito B. Mariko Yoshida, Yumiko Hata and Toshio Yamada B. Takako Inoue and Minami Toyota, Asia Kong and Reggie Bennett B. Kyoko Inoue and Saki Hasagawa 11/9 Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, WWF Challenge Taping, 4000, Non-Squash Results, WWF Title, Bret Hart B. Bob Backlund, King Kong Bundy B. Duke Trees, Lex Luger Tatanka, 123 Kid and Portuguese Man of War B. Heavenly Bodies, Davey Boy Smith B. Jim Neidhart, Casket Match Undertaker B. Yokozuna 11 9ths Atlanta Center Stage, WCW Saturday Night Taping, 760/ All Freebies, Non-Squash Results, Jim Duggan B. Steve Austin DQ, Harlem Heat B. Fantastics 11 9ths Takamatsu, All Japan Women, 1820, Tamiyama B. Miyamoto, Kato B. Misaki Watanabe, Suzuka Minami and Kaoru Ito B. Mariko Yoshida and Chaparita Sari, Takako Inoue and Saki Hasegawa B. Tomoko Watanabe and Reggie Bennett, Handicap Match, Kyoko Inoue B. Rita Mata and Kumiko Maekawa, Yumiko Hata and Manami Toyota and Mima Shimoda B. Asia Kong and Toshio Yamada and Etsuko Mita 11/10 St. Louis, WWF, 4500. Bushwhackers B. Well Done, Atom Bomb B. Bam Bam Bigelow, Jerry Lawler B. Doink the Clown, Tatanka Lex Luger, Alundra Blaze and Heidi Lee Morgan B. Bull Nakano and Luna Vachon, IC title, Razor Ramon B. Owen Hart, Casket Match Undertaker B. Yokozuna 11/10 Indianapolis, WCW, 1400, WCW TV title, Johnny B. Bad D. Honky Tonk Man, Dave Sullivan B. Kevin Sullivan DQ, Nasty Boys B. Paul Roma and Jean Paul Levesque, Guardian Angel B. Steve Regal, US title, Jim Duggan B. Steve Austin DQ, Cage Match, Sting and Dustin Rhodes B. Arnold Anderson and Bunkhouse Buck 11/10 Cookeville, Tennessee, SMW, 550, Tracy Smothers B. Bryant Anderson, Lance Storm and Brian Lee B. Chris Condito and Boo Bradley DQ, Strap Match for SMW title, Dirty White Boy B. Bruiser Bedlam, No DQ for SMW Tag titles, Gangstas B. Rock and Roll Express 11/10 Trenton, Tennessee, ASWA, 300, Doug Gilbert B. Corey Williams Mississippi Texas B. Fantasia, ASWA Tag title, Moondogs B. Phantoms, ASWA title, Brian Christopher B. Tommy Rich DQ, Christopher won 8-man elimination match 11/10 Hiroshima Green Arena, All Japan Women. 2880, Nobuendo B. Kato, Kanayama B. Masaki Watanabe, Tomoko Watanabe and Takahashi B. Chaparita Sari and Kumiko Maekawa, Etsuko Mita and Mima Shimoda B. Saki Hasegawa and Ri Tamada, Mariko Yoshida B. Kaoru Ito, Manami Toyota and Reggie Bennett B. Toshio Yamada and Asia Kong, WWWA Tag Title Kyoko Inoue and Takako Inoue B. Yumiko Hata and Suzuka Minami 34/15 and 11/10 Sakita, Michinoku Pro, 464 Sellout, Wellington Wilkins Jr. B. Masato Yakashiji, Kendo B. Katsubo, Grand Naniwa and Takamichinoku B. Naohiro Hoshikawa and Pantera 2, Blackman and Hanzo Nakajima B. Shiryu and Sato, Jinsei Shinzaki and Super Delphin B. Mascara Magica and Terry Boy 11/10 Indianapolis, Circle City Wrestling, 100, Flash Flanagan B. Doug Basham, Gordy Jones B. Satan's Gatekeeper, Mike Samples B. Victor Lewis, Eliminators B. Heartthrobs, Barroom Brawler B. Samples 11/10 Sherman Oaks, California, Slammers, 902 Benefit School Show, Bill Pearl B. L.J. Silver DQ, Hombre de Oro B. Bruce Bodine, Tiny Little B. Dynamite D. Jeff Lindbergh B. Movie Star Mike 1111 Lenore, North Carolina, SMW, 300, Brian Anderson D. Tracy Smothers 2.5 stars, Brian Lee and Lance Storm B. Chris Condito and Boo Bradley DQ 1.5 star, Strap Match, Dirty White Boy B. Bruiser Bedlam Dud, No DQ for SMW Tag Title, Gangstas B. Rock and Roll Express 3 stars 1111 Dallas Sportatorium, NWA, 350, Rod Price B. Rico Suave, Scott Putski B. Aries, Mike Davis, Chris Youngblood B. Alex Walker, Tully Blanchard B. Chico Caballo, Tony Norris B. Black Bart, Greg Valentine B. Mark Youngblood 1111 Yahanahama, All Japan Women, Kato and Misaki Watanabe B. Miyamoto and Kanayama, Nobuendo B. Takahashi, Etsuko Mita B. Chaparita Sari, Asia Kong and Reggie Bennett B. Tomoko Watanabe and Rita Mata, Manami Toyota B. Mariko Yoshida, Yumiko Hata and Kyoko Inoue and Saki Hasegawa B. Suzuka Minami and Mima Shimoda and Toshio Yamada 1111 Fujisaki, Michinoku Pro, Great Sasuke B. Mascara Magica, Sato and Terry Boy and Shiryu B. Wellington Wilkins Jr. and Naohiro Hoshikawa and Masato Yakashiji, Pantera 2 and Kendo B. Blackman and Hanzo Nakajima, Super Delphin and Jinsei Shinzaki B. Takamichinoku and Gran Aniwa 1111 Catonsville, MD, Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation, Ken Basta B. Billy Bratt, Mad Dog O'Malley B. Mr. Destiny, Johnny Paradise B. Rambling Rich, Mark Schrader B. Shane Shamrock, Axel Rottenker Cactus Jack, Lil Ninja B Irish Leprechaun, Morgus the Maniac B Scotty Flamingo, Warlord B Brutus Beefcake, Road Warrior Hawk and the Comet B Hollywood Hunks 1111 Rossville Georgia, TriStar Wrestling, Billy Montana B Chuck Colt, Richie Dye B Mr. Rossville, Bubba and John Humphreys B Billy Montana and Jimmy Sharp, Johnny Blaze and Frankie Lee B Joel Travis and French Angel, Rawhead Rex B Sam Colt 11/12 Boston, WWF, 5000, Bushwhackers B Well Done 1/2 1 star, Bam Bam Bigelow B Atom Bomb 1 3/4 stars, Jerry Lawler B Doink the Clown 1/2 1 star, Lex Luger Tatanka 1 1/2 star, Alundra Blaze and Heidi Lee Morgan B Bull Nakano and Luna Vachon 3/4 1 star, IC title, Razor Ramon B Owen Hart 3 stars, Undertaker B IRS 1/4 1 star 11/12 Barberville Kentucky, SMW, 550, D. Low Brown B The Nightmare, No Time Limit, Tracy Smothers B Brian Anderson, Chris Condito and Boo Bradley B Lance Storm and Brian Lee, Tornado Match for SMW Tag Titles, Gangstas NC Rock and Roll Express, Handicap Cage Match, Bruiser Bedlam and Jim Cornette B Dirty White Boy 11/12 Shikawa, IWA, Johnny Gomez B Negra, Hiroshi Ono B Tajiri, Silver King and El Texano B Super Astro and Takashi Okano, Dick Slater NC Leatherface, Rick Patterson, Headhunters B Shoji Nakamaki and Nobutaka Araya, Terry Funk B Miguel Perez 11/12 Towada, Michinoku Pro, Great Sasuke B Hanzo Nakajima, Terry Boy and Wellington Wilkins Jr. B Naohiro Hoshikawa and Masato Yakashiji, Blackman B Mascara Magica, Takamichi Noku and Grand Naniwa B Sato and Shiryu DQ, Super Delphin and Jinsei Shinzaki B Pantera 2 and Kendo 11/12 Tosa, All Japan Women, Yoko Endo B Kato, Kanayama B Masaki Watanabe, Marco Yoshida and Takahashi B Ritamata and Chapari Dosari, Toshio Yamada and Reggie Bennett B Mima Shimoda and Etsuko Mita, Saki Hasegawa B Tomoko Watanabe, Asia Kong and Kyoko Inoue B Manami Toyota and Yumiko Hada 11/12 Hempstead, MD, Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation, Corporal Punishment 1 Rumble Battle Royal, Karen Simpson B Nasty Angel, Mad Dog O'Malley B Chicken Neck, Mark Shipley B Bob Star, The Comet B Joe Thrasher, Doink's Lil Buddy B Lil Ninja, Scotty Flamingo B Axel Rotten, Cactus Jack and Axel Rotten B Goodfellas, Brutus Beefcake B Doink the Clown, Road Warrior Hawk B Warlord 11/12 State in Ohio, GWA, Jimmy V1 Battle Royal, Jimmy VB Mark Mustang, Lance Gunn B Steve Strong, Rob Austin and Steve Nixon B Zebra Kid and Rick Matrix, Al Snow B Ray Roberts 11/12 Southern Pines North Carolina, Atlantic Coast Wrestling, 292, Red Scorpion B Rock and Roll Rebel, Grave Digger, Sergeant Rhodes and Tim Blaze B Billy Black and Tex Granger, Pat Friday B Mad Dog Davidson, Jerry Slash and Rocking Robbie B Dr. Lee Love and L.A. Wilder, Wahoo McDaniel B Rick Link DQ 11/12 Greenville Tennessee, All Pro Wrestling, Vicious Victor and Bad Company B David Spade and Blacktop Bully, Ricky Harrison B The Stallion, Mike McCoy and Dr. Feelgood and Tiny D DQ The Boss and Frank Parker and Midnight Muller, Cherokee Renegade and Alex Shane D Troublemakers, Ghost Rider B Chris Steelheart, Chains B Mike Spade, Jimmy Valiant and Mr. X B Eddie Golden and Stanley DQ 11/12 Chatsworth Georgia, TWA, Dr. Feelgood B Magic Dragon, Larry Blade B Intruder DQ, Jimmy Sharp B Dictari, Billy Montana and Chuck Cold, Feelgood and Dictari and Frankie Lee B Sharp and Montana and Joel Travis 11/13 Cologne, Germany, WWF, 6500 Sellout, 123 Kid B Quang, Bob Holly B Pierre, Diesel B Fatu, Mabel B Jeff Jarrett Core, Smoking Guns B Heavenly Bodies, Davey Boy Smith B Jim Neidhart, WWF title, Bret Hart B King Kong Bundy 11/13 Orlando, WCW, 2000, Frankie Lancaster B Mark Star 1/2 1 star, Guardian Angel B Steve Regal 1 3/4 stars, WCW TV title, Johnny B Bad D Honky Tonk Man Dud, Nasty Boys B Paul Roma and Gene Paul Levesque 2 1/4 stars, US title, Jim Duggan B Steve Austin DQ 1 1/2 star, Dusty and Dustin Rhodes B Arnold Anderson and Bunkhouse Buck 2 1/4 stars, Hulk Hogan and Sting and Dave Sullivan B The Butcher and Avalanche and Kevin Sullivan DQ 1/2 1 star 11/13 Tokyo Bay and K Hall, Heisei Ishingun, 5000, Animal Hamaguchi B Michioshi Ohara, Yoshiaki Yatsu B Great Kabuki, Kengo Kimura B Isao Takagi, Geto and Hiramichi Fuyuki B Kunyaki Kobayashi and Akitoshi Saito, Wilhelm Ruska beat Tatsutoshi Goto, no rope circle ring match with Antonio Inoki referee. Shiro Koshinaka beat Tiger Jeet Singh 11-13 Yamagata, Michinoku Pro, 616, Kendo beat Terry Boy, Shiryu and Sato and Great Sasuke beat Hanzo Nakajima and Blackman and Pantera 2, 94 Tag Team Tournament Final, Super Delphin and Jinsei Shinzaki beat Takamichinoku and Grand Naniwa. 11-13 Hashoye, Eva, 2850, prelim results unavailable, Headhunters beat Silver King and El Texano, bunkhouse match, Leatherface beat Miguel Perez, ring surrounded by fire, Terry Funk and Hiroshi Ono beat Shoji Nakamaki and Nobutaka Arai 11-13 Essex, MD, Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation, Bulldozer Benton and JR Willett beat Malaysian Militia, Toxic Waste beat Red Scorpion, Comet beat Johnny Taylor, Fantasia, Nadaswar Wrestler, beat Nasty Angel, Joe Thunder beat Rambling Rich, Irish Leprechaun beat Little Ninja, Doink the Clown beat Scotty Flamingo, Hollywood Hunks beat Cactus Jack and Morgus the Maniac, Shane Shamrock beat Cat Burglar, Axel Rutten beat Corporal Punishment, Road Warrior Hawk beat Warlord 11-13 Kingwood West Virginia, Nawa, 600, The Inferno, Brian Keys, beat Anthony Michaels, Kawabunga the Turtle, Brian Hildebrand, beat Sean Adams, Brian Logan, Keys, beat Prince Karis, not XSMW wrestler of same name, Bobby Fulton and Michaels beat Inferno and Lord Zoltan, Junkyard Dog beat Libby and Chic. Special thanks to Norm Connors, Ed Stiles, Linus Sargent, Steve Dr. Lucha Sims, Timothy Walker, Bruce Bennett, Brian Hildebrand, Bruce Mitchell, Mike Tenay, Brian Heffron, Dan Paris, Scott Hudson, Steve Prozik, Ron Lemieux, Jesse Money, Jerry Lane, Rob Naylor, Peggy Watkins, Ken Desai, Greg Hunt, Buddy Phillips, Bill Needham, Corey Van Kluk, Oliver Holman, Darrell Bruff, John Clark, Greg John, Howard Brody, John Callahan, Dan Haleman. October Business Comparisons World Wrestling Federation. Estimated average attendance 1093 3,290. Estimated average attendance 1094 2,880, minus 12.5%. September 1994 2,751 star. Estimated average gate 1093 $43,680. Estimated average gate 1094 $43,510, minus 0.4%. September 1994 $39,751 star. Percentage of house shows sold out 1093 4.5. Percentage of house shows sold out 1094 2.7. September 1994 5.01 star. Average cable television rating 1093 2.0. Average cable television rating 1094 1.9, minus 5.0%. September 1994 1.72 stars. 1 star European shows not included in average. 2 stars denotes all-time low for the promotion. World Championship Wrestling. Estimated average attendance 1093 601 star. Estimated average attendance 1094 2400, plus 400.0%. September 1994 452 stars. Estimated average gate 1093 $5,281 star. Estimated average gate 1094 $32,000, plus 506.1%. September 1994 $3,202 stars. Percentage of house shows sold out 1093 2.91 star. Percentage of house shows sold out 1094 0.0. September 1994 0.02 stars. Average cable television rating 1093 2.0. Average cable television rating 1094 2.1, plus 5.0%. September 1994 1.9. Major show 1093, Halloween Havoc, 6,000 3,000 paid $30,000/est. 0.5 buy rate/est. $1.17 million. Major show 1094, Halloween Havoc, 14,000 8,595 paid $189,000/est. 0.97 buy rate/est. $2.50 million. Buy rate plus 94.0%, est. Overall revenue plus 124.2%. 1 star European shows not included in average. WCW only ran one house show in September 1994, so comparisons are misleading. 2 stars European shows not included in average. All Japan Pro Wrestling. Estimated average attendance 1093 2710. Estimated average attendance 1094 2500, minus 7.8%. September 1994 2,201 star. Estimated average gate 1093 $92,140. Estimated average gate 1094 $102,500, plus 11.2%. September 1994 $92, 401 star. Percentage of house shows sold out 1093 71.4. Percentage of house shows sold out 1094 69.2. September 1994 50.01 star. Average television rating 1093 2.8. Average television rating 1094 1.52 stars, minus 46.4%. September 1994 1.62 stars. Major show 1093, Budokan Hall, 16,300 fans Est. $850,000. Major show 1094, Budokan Hall, 16,300 fans Est. $1 million. 1 star. All Japan only ran 2 regular house shows in September, so comparisons are misleading. 2 stars because of time slot change, comparisons are misleading. New Japan Pro Wrestling. Estimated average attendance 1093 2850. Estimated average attendance 1094 3330, plus 15.8%. September 1994 6940. Estimated average gate 1093 $96,880. Estimated average gate 1094 $145,270, plus 49.9%. September 1994 $446,100. Percentage of house shows sold out 1093 45.0. Percentage of house shows sold out 1094 66.7. September 1994 66.7. Average television rating 1093 5.8. Average television rating 1094 1.6, minus 72.4%. September 1994 2.31 star. 1 star because of time slot change, comparisons are misleading. Japanese television rundown 1022 and 29. All Japan, 1. Toshiaki Kawada beat Steve Williams to win the Triple Crown in 42:00. The match started very slow, much slower than usual because they were going so long. Mainly Williams would beat Kawada's brains out and Kawada destroyed Williams' knee. This set up the second half, which was still slower paced than usual but stiff with great psychology. They did less big moves than usual, but the setup made the big moves mean more. In many ways this was more like a U.W.F.I. match than an All Japan match, but like a great U.W.F.I. match with Kawada in the Takada roll and Williams in the Vader or Albright roll. Williams did moves like the Dr. Bomb and Tiger Suplex for near falls before finally hitting the backdrop driver. Kawada acted out but rolled out of the ring by instinct. He sold it great because he went dead weight when Williams tried to throw him back in, and kicked out when Williams got him in, then rolled out. Williams went for the backdrop driver on the floor but Kawada blocked it. Kawada hit a power bomb and Williams a power slam for near falls before Kawada erupted in a Takada-like fury of kicks to the face and scored the pin. This was not as good as most Budokan mains this year, but was also a totally different match and great in its own way. 4 stars. 11/5 New Japan, 1. Hellraisers beat Tatsumi Fujinami and Yoshiaki Fujiwara in 850 when power pinned Fujinami with a power slam. So-so until a good finish. 2 stars. 2. Masa Chono and Super Strong Machine beat Hiroshi Hayes and Keiji Muto in 1443. This was the match during the tourney round robin rather than the finals. The story was Chono and Machine's heat, so Hayes and Muto did their roles of doing good work but not great work, so they wouldn't steal from the story that needed to get over. Chono and Machine wouldn't work together and finally Machine walked out as Hayes and Muto destroyed Chono. They kept spitting on and swearing at Machine but come back. Finally Hayes gave Chono a giant swing and suddenly Machine sprinted back to the ring and clotheslined both foes and tagged and going wild. They did a lot of good moves and near falls back and forth until Chono and Machine did a stuff power bomb on Hayes for the pin. 3.5 stars. 3. Norio Onaga retained the IWGP Junior title beating Shinjiro Otani in 1953. First few minutes were slow. Otani then looked great with a springboard dropkick, a superplex and a Frankensteiner off the top and a dragon suplex, all for near falls. He went for a second dragon suplex and Onaga kicked Otani in the knee. After a flying neckbreaker, Onaga threw Otani to the floor where he sold a knee huge. Otani's facials were great. Rest of the match consisted of Onaga kicking the bad knee and Otani making quick comebacks. Finally Onaga got Otani in a half crab and the ref stopped the match, ruling Otani unable to continue. 3¼ stars. UA? Kanek is staying with this group, at least for now. It appears the impasse with him and AAA from months ago, regarding his dropping his UA heavyweight strap to an AAA wrestler, remains. However, in a major surprise, the longtime number 2 wrestler in the group, Dos Caras, has jumped to MLL. Kanek retained the heavyweight strap on October 25 in Ecatepec, beating Scorpio Jr., and had a defense on November 13 in Querétaro against Shuel Guerrero. They held a double power show with AAA on November 9 in Nezahualcóyotl with Pero Aguayo and Cibernetico and Gran Hamada vs Kanek and Cien Caras and Angel Blanco Jr. and Los Villanos vs Eddie Guerrero and Love Machine and Madonna's Boyfriend as the double main. Machine and Boyfriend both weren't at the show, Machine because of an infection that wouldn't allow him to fly and Boyfriend due to an office mix-up on dates. EMLL. Ultimo Dragon became a double middleweight champion, winning a UA and NWA unification match on Wars 11/8 Tokyo Karaku and Hall show from Corazon de Leon or Lionheart. Chris Jericho/Lionheart is the English translation of Corazon de Leon. Since Dragon works here, the unified title will become just the NWA title and UA may recognize a new middleweight champion in the future. They officially stripped Kanek and Dr. Wagner Jr. of the CMLL tag belts and started a tournament on November 11 at Arena Mexico. There will be a 16-team tournament that will take place the next few Friday nights. The tournament winner faces Silver King and El Texano to fill the vacant belts. King and Texano won a recent several-week-long tournament at Arena Mexico and thus were seeded directly into the final. Teams involved are Vampiro Canadiense and Apollo Dantes, Ultimo Dragon, and Hayabusa, Brazo de Oro and Brazo de Plata, Atlantis and Corazon de Leon, Chris Jericho, Negro Casas and Dandy, Rayo de Jalisco Jr. and El Hijo del Solitario, Blue Demon Jr. and Dos Caras, Louisiana Fiera and Shocker, Humberto and Hector Garza, 2 rookies who are said to be very good and definite future stars, Sangre Chicana and Bestia Salvaje, Emilio Charles Jr., and El Satanico, Mano Negra and Felino, Gran Marcus Jr. and El Hijo del Gladiador, Wagner, and Pierrot Jr., Ricky Santana and El Boricua, a masked wrestler from Puerto Rico, and Black Power and Black Magic. Felino beat Justiciero on October 28 at Arena Mexico in a mask vs. mask match that drew a huge crowd. There were printed estimates of 12,000, although that figure may be inflated, although from photos it was obvious the crowd was big. Justiciero, when he took off his mask, was instantly recognized by fans as Lalo El Magnifico, who was a big star in Super Muñeco's old Agua promotion years ago in Mexico City. He announced his real name was Marcos Contreras, 39, a lawyer from Mexico City. Headhunters look to be returning in December. There has been nothing new regarding the commission instituting new rules governing wrestling in the Distrito Federal. The commission came up with a list of 7 new rules ranging from positive enforcement of all stipulations to no fighting outside the ring and allowing commissioners to reverse decisions if the ref makes the wrong ruling. The new laws were to go into effect on November 1, but later came word compromises were attempting to be worked out. Thus far everything is as it was before. On October 25 at Arena Coliseo they had a one-night tag tourney for the first annual Oro Cup, named after the young wrestler who died in the ring 1 year earlier. Dantes and Dandy beat Pierrot Jr. and Satanico in the main event. Oro 2, younger brother of Oro, gave the winners a trophy and fans threw tons of money into the ring in appreciation after the final match. Japan. All Japan and New Japan don't open up until 11/19 and 11/23 respectively, so the focus was on War and All Japan Women. BVD, the American t-shirt and underwear company, signed a $1 million sponsorship deal with All Japan Women, which includes their name and insignia being put on the AJW ring. The New Japan satellite promotion Heisei Shingun ran its first show on November 13 at Tokyo Bay-N-K Hall before a crowd announced at 5,000, although given the lineup, it's hard to believe they drew that many. They had a teacher versus student match with War's Animal Hamaguchi beating Michiyoshi Ohara. Wilhelm Ruska beat Tatsutoshi Goto with a sleeper in 141 of round 3. Main event was a no-rope match in a circular ring with Antonio Inoki as referee between group's top star Shiro Koshinaka and Tiger Jeet Singh. However, it turned into the Inoki show with Koshinaka forced into the background. The fans were primed to see Inoki go at it with Singh, They had a legendary feud in the 70s which Singh has been living off for 20 years. Singh caught Koshinaka in the sleeper, but Koshinaka got his leg on the ropes and of course refused to break. Inoki wound up punching Singh a few times but couldn't get him to break, until finally he put Singh in a choke sleeper of his own. Koshinaka recovered, Inoki let go of the sleeper, and gave the stunned Singh 2 back suplexes and put him in the short arm scissors, U.W.F. I armbreaker, for the submission in 6:39. People were afraid this may set up another Inoki vs Singh match for the January 4, 1995 Tokyo Dome. The originally planned Inoki vs Hulk Hogan match appears to be out the window because Hogan's WCW contract pays him anywhere from $300,000 to up to $1 million per match. All of a sudden his estimated $100,000 to $125,000 per shot deal in New Japan isn't enough money. New Japan didn't feel increasing his money would be justified since they are going to sell out or come very close with him or without him, and his past matches indicate he doesn't sell them any extra tickets. Plus they're saddled with not only having to use Brutus Beefcake but put him over, which guarantees an awful match that isn't believable to the fans. Inoki continues to be the expert at getting press. When he returned from the US, for the Foreman-Moore title fight on November 9, he held a press conference at the Narita airport. He said with Foreman winning the title that Foreman's schedule was such that there was no way they could put together his proposed match with Foreman for April in North Korea. He said he's now looking at either Hogan or Ric Flair as his opponent in the 100,000-seat soccer stadium. He also announced after the Tokyo Dome he'd also wrestle in March on a big show in Nagoya and in May at the annual Fukuoka Dome show, and have 1 or 2 matches left after that. He announced on May 5 he would be Muhammad Ali's special guest at the Los Angeles Marathon. Besides the Ultimo Dragon/Lionheart unification match, the 11/8 War show was headlined by a 6-man title defense with Gedo and Jado and Hiromichi Fuyuki beating Genichiro Tenryu and Animal Hamaguchi and Koki Kitahara in 42-56. Rock and Roll Express won most of their bouts on the tour until losing to Kendo Nagasaki and aka Oni, Don Morocco. Lionheart had beaten Dragon on November 7 in Chiba to retain the NWA middleweight title. All Japan Women became the first group to run at the Hiroshima Green Dome on November 10, drawing 2,880 with Kyoko Inoue and Takako Inoue keeping the WWA tag titles, beating Suzuka Minami and Yumiko Hata in a 2/3 fall match which went 34-15. It was officially announced that the woman from Holland who is said to be the toughest woman in the world won't be coming to the Tokyo Dome for the mixed match with Kyoko Inoue, so they'll probably get a Japanese woman kickboxer to take her place. Also added to the Tokyo Dome show was a men's match with Great Sasuke and Sato and Shiryu vs Jinsei Shinzaki and Super Delphin and Grand Naniwa. Gong magazine had more provocative photos of Takako Inoue in the 11/24 issue building to the Tokyo Dome and hyping a modeling picture book on her that will be released on November 16. Terry Funk held a press conference upon his arrival in Japan on November 11 for the Eva's Texas Bronco return tour this week. Funk brought a check for $500,000 with him and challenged Atsushi Onita to a $1 million winner-take-all match. Funk debuted on November 12 beating Miguel Perez, and on November 13 in Hashoye teamed with Hiroshi Ono over Nobutaka Araya and Shoji Nakamaki in a ring surrounded by fire match. FMW's show at the Hiroshima Green Dome on December 1 would have a barbed wire no-rope barricade double hell match with the Great Nita, Onita doing a Great Muta gimmick complete with green mist for the first time, and Ho Chi Win, the gimmick Tarzan Goto used as a Vietnamese refugee working Florida Indies years ago, in a handicap match against Mr. Pogo and Hisakatsu Oi and Yukihiro Kanemura. They also announced their final show of the year on December 9 at Korakuen Hall with a 10-man tag with FMW, Onita Goto Mr. Ganasuke Katsutoshi Niyama Koji Nakagawa, vs X1 Staring, Pogo Oi Kanemura Mitsuhiro Matsunaga Hideki Hasaka, and a Big Titan vs Gladiator singles match. Mistake from last week. In running down results from the Michinoku Pro Tag Team Tournament Tour, we listed a wrestler as Blackman too. Actually it was the original Blackman, Alvaro Mendez, 41, who had the classic matches with Satoru Sayama in the early 80s. Sasuke, who was out since 10/30 selling injuries from his explosive landmine barbed wire, etc. match with Onita, came back on November 11. Talk once again that Shinzaki of Michinoku Pro is WWF bound. Shinzaki and Super Delphin captured MPW's first annual tag team tournament beating Grand Naniwa and Taka Michinoku in the finals on November 13 in Yamagata. Sasuke and Yoshiaki Fujiwara form a tag team on November 15 in Katawa against Shinzaki and Naniwa is what is billed as a combined PWFG and MPW show. PWFG is almost dead. Both magazines reported that the last show they had at Korakuen Hall really only drew 150 paid. Although no announcements whatsoever have been made, there are negotiations going on for the biggest inter-promotional show ever in Japan on April 2, 1995, which is the same day as WrestleMania, at the Tokyo Dome. Takashi Ishikawa's Tokyo Pro Wrestling held a press conference this past week. Ishikawa and Dangtain, formerly Arashi in War, will be the top stars of the group, and they announced former Now wrestlers Apollo Sugawara, Kishin Kawabata, Ryoma Ake, Hiroshi Hatanaka and Seiji Yamanaka would join the group, and they'd use indie wrestlers like Goro Tsurumi, Masahiko Takasugi, Kazuhiko Matsuzaki, Poison Sawada, etc. from Iwu. All Japan TV on November 5, which had Michisharo Masawa and Stan Hansen vs Kenta Kobashi and Akira Tao, drew a 1.5 rating. Added to the originally announced Wayne Shamrock, Minoru Suzuki, Masakatsu Funaki and Boss Rutan to the two-day Pancrase World Heavyweight Championship Tournament on December 16 and 12/17 are Yusuke Fuke, Jason DeLucia, Matt Hume, and Manabu Yamada. Aswa. The second Sid Vicious vs Undertaker match on November 4 drew another strong crowd of $2,514,000, which would be the third largest crowd of the year behind only the Memphis Memories Old Timers show in the first Vicious Undertaker match. The finish saw Vicious pull out a chain, but Undertaker got it from him and used it for the pin to apparently win the unified title. But after the match, Spellbinder showed the ref that Undertaker had a chain and the decision was reversed. Lex Luger was brought in for a match with Vicious on the 11/5 show in Louisville with a DQ finish for Spellbinder interfering. Bill Dundee returned as an active wrestler for the 11/11 main event, teaming with Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher vs Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert and manager Scott Bowden. Dundee came out as the dreaded mystery partner, and did a really strong interview, although it was kind of weird at this point in time to hear Dundee do the same type interview he was doing nearly 20 years ago. Dundee in his interview talked about remembering wrestling Rich in Rich's third match. For whatever reason, both Dundee and Bowden in their interviews brought up the 1979 Tupelo concession stand brawl with Lawler and Dundee vs Wayne Ferris, Honky Tonk Man, and Larry Latham, Moondog Spot. They then aired a Dundee video that was so old it was shot before Ricky Morton hit puberty. New big heel tag team is composed of Ron Harris of the Bruce Brothers and a so-called cousin called Gorgeous Jimmy Harris, don't know who, called Beauty and the Beast. The new Harris was said to look like a younger version of Spike Huber. During the interview, Ron said his brother was kicking tail in Puerto Rico and mentioned that Brian Lee was his cousin. Besides the return of Dundee, also on November 11 is Sid Vicious defending the unified title against anyone on the card chosen by the fans. They were teasing trying to lead the fans to pick his usual tag partner Spellbinder, Fantasia vs Miss Texas in a lumberjack match, Buddy Landel vs Spellbinder with the winner getting a title match, Phantom Sorrow vs Jeff Gaylord and Phantom Tragedy vs Tony Williams. SMW. This week's television show was a preview show for Thanksgiving Thunder, which is strange because one would think the preview show would air next weekend. The show is said to be nowhere near the caliber of the preview show for Night of the Legends. Crowds were a little stronger this past week, generally in the 500 to 550 range. This coming week is the SMW New Jersey/Pennsylvania tour. WTLK, which airs this group's show in Atlanta, were hot at the group because of Cactus Jack's interview saying something like Boo Bradley wasn't the first man messed up by a little pussy, in reference to the cat. Here and there. For those voting in awards, we've tried to gather a list of eligible candidates for Rookie of the Year. If there is anyone significant left out, we'll try and get them in next week's issue. In no particular order: Tadao Yasuda, Shocker, Humberto Garza, Hector Garza, Tomoe Honda, Kentaro Shiga, Gasaku Goshigawara, Katsumi Inagaki, Boss Rutan, Renka Perdule, Jason DeLucia, Vernon White, Matt Hume, Duke Dries, Vagabundo, Brian Anderson, Craig Pittman, The Gangstas, Anthony Michaels, Mikey Whipwreck, 911, Boo Bradley, Cibernetico, Jean-Paul Levesque, Hiroshi Ono, Al Condorado Jr. and Elihoda Anibal. This week's word on Sabu is that he still lacks feeling in his right arm and hand due to nerve damage from landing on his head in the match with Chris Benoit in Philadelphia. He canceled his show on November 10 in Inkster, Michigan, but is trying to come back on 11/18-19 for his ECW bookings and then leave for an FMW tour. Apparently Jim Ultimate Warrior Hellwig was wrestling this past week on a tour of India since there was a wire story about a riot in Ludhiana, India after a match between Ultimate Warrior and Demolition Axe, Billy D. According to the story, During the match the wrestlers threw chairs at the fans, injuring 5 people. At that point 2 local wrestlers, apparently as part of the script, did a run-in. However, a number of fans joined the local wrestlers and attacked Warrior and Axe and pounded on them with field hockey sticks, with Warrior sustaining an eye injury and 5 of the fans were also injured in the brawl. The police broke up the brawl and shut down the show. Speaking of ECW, people are raving about the Tommy Dreamer /Sandman /Peaches /Woman angle that aired on television this past week that was taped at the 11/5 house show. Also on the TV, they did a commercial for their own When Worlds Collide video, of a house show a few months back, and gave the phone number to order in Spanish. ECW is looking at running house shows either Christmas week or in early January in Florida. Sid Vicious pulled out of his 11/26 booking for Peach State Wrestling in Warner Robins, Georgia because he told the promotion he wanted to go deer hunting, so they've booked Rick Steiner to take his place for the main event against Jerry Lawler. Even though IUWFI press release states to the contrary, expect Dan Severn to participate in UFC 4. Eddie Gilbert did election night analysis on a local radio station in Tennessee. Jim Crockett's television already appears to be off the air in Chattanooga, almost as if that part of the country has been abandoned and Crockett will only run Texas since there has been no talk of doing tapings of shows in the Southeast. Crockett's third Dallas Sportatorium show on November 11 drew the same 350 fans. Tully Blanchard seemed on his way to a heel turn, but since there wasn't any television taped, everything was in a holding pattern. Skander Akbar did a heel interview saying he was bringing someone in with an unbreakable finishing hold to go after Black Bart and Greg Valentine, which is supposed to be Kevin Von Erich. They are bringing back more of the ex-Global crew such as King Parsons, Chaz Taylor and High Voltage this coming week. Kay Bell, who played pro football in the late 30s and early 40s and later was a wrestling star on the West Coast, passed away in late October at the age of 80. Bell played Victor Mature's double in the movie Samson and Delilah and for a while after that, used the ring name Kay Samson Bell. A Canadian coalition fighting TV violence on children's programming has targeted pro wrestling on its hit list, which wound up in a story that ran nationally in Canadian press last week. John Studd underwent a bone marrow transplant about 1 week ago. The TV show Secrets Revealed 2 did a segment on Killer Kowalski's wrestling school that will air in February. AAA plan right now is for a second pay-per-view show which will be a WCW co-promotion, on April 23, 1995. Galavision show over the weekend was the 10/27 Triple Power, AAA/UO/WWO, show in Tijuana, which was one of the weaker shows of late with terrible finishes. The first 3 matches for some unexplained reason, were one fall. Rey Mysterio Jr. and Pilato Suicida and El Psicodelico faced Psicosis and Psicopata, Mando Guerrero, and Sangre Fria. It's amazing seeing Psicodelico in the same ring with Mysterio Jr. and Psicosis, as Psicodelico is worse than any active wrestler in the US. Mysterio Jr. and Psicosis were on and made it a good match anyway. Mysterio Jr. did a springboard off the top rope into a Frankensteiner, and he and Suicida, which means suicide. Pilot in English, although announcer Arturo Rivera kept calling him Suicide Cab Driver, did a simultaneous Liger dive before the finish. Psicodelico wound up attacking both his partners, and when the other heels joined in, a DQ was called, 3¼ stars. Then Gran Hamada and Santo and Tito Santana beat Payaso del Diablo, translated means Devil Clown, but was also called Doink the Clown, and was Matt Bourne, and La Parca and Villano 4 via DQ when V4 unmasked Santo. Hamada and V4 both looked great and, along with Santo, made the match. Santana was over more here than in Los Angeles and got good heat working with Doink Curly. He apparently hurt his knee because he was virtually immobile later in the match. The bout fell apart at the end and had a bad finish, 2¾ stars. Next came the worst TV match since the last time the women had a travesty, with Kanik and Cien Caras and Warlord vs Cibernetico and Perro Aguayo and Jimmy Snuka. Warlord was huge, although he's been bigger in the past. It's ridiculous to bill Snuka as Superfly in Mexico. Nobody was over in the slightest. Cibernetico is very green, but didn't show much potential either. The only one who could get any heat was Aguayo, who at least showed enthusiasm if not any moves. Kanek was a real disappointment, showing nothing, and let's not get into Warlord and Snuka. A horrible match was made worse by a lame double countout finish, 1½ star. Main event, to complete the all-screwjob night, was Rey Mysterio's hair versus hair match with longtime Baja California rival Huichol. The two totally worked their butts off, going at least 26:00. Some of the third fall was edited so it was longer than that, with heavy double juice. Our report of 9 topes was exaggerated, although I counted 4, and about 1600 hours straight of near falls with great heat, ending with Weichel giving Mysterio a low blow for the DQ. They had a long post-match deal with Mysterio going to cut Weichel's long hair, and they made it look like a shoot as Mysterio tied Weichel up and grabbed his hair. When Jerry Estrada did the run-in, Mysterio didn't sell it. Weichel got from the neck down sliced, then escaped as Estrada challenged Mysterio to a hair match next show in Tijuana. Newspapers and magazines were really critical of Weichel running off without getting shaved bald. 4 stars. Angel Blanco Jr. is headed in as a heel. Biggest show of the past week was 11:13 in Juarez, which was the group's final show in Mexico before the Japan tour. Card was Conan vs. Aguayo in an IWC heavyweight title match, Parka, first match as a face, and Sando in Octagon vs. Estrada and Blue Panther and Fishman, Heavy Metal and Latin Lover and Lizmark Jr. vs. Psicosis and Fuerza Guerrera and Juventud Guerrera, Mascarada Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto and Super Muñequito vs. Espectrito and Jurito Estrada and Fuercita Guerrera and Bali and Shogriva and Super Amigo vs. Angel Mortal and Mr. Condor and Maribanda. It appears they are going in the direction of Heavy and Latin in a tag team title feud with Fuerza and either Psicosis or Juventud as partners. Recent title bouts saw Parka beat Mascara Sagrada to keep the Mexican light heavyweight title on November 9 and Acayucan and Juventud Guerrera over winners to keep world lightweight title on October 30 in Mexico City. Boxy Lucha magazine called the 10:30 Panther vs. Mariachi middleweight title match, which may air on Galavision this coming week, as the best match of recent years. Bout was totally scientific, with Panther winning via submission in the third fall. Apparently the Los Angeles cage, while imposing from a fan perspective, wasn't made for climbing. Both Conan and Aguayo wound up with badly swollen ankles because they could barely get their boots inside the small holes, and had to climb with their arms and hands because they couldn't get footing in the cage. It was only the third time that cage was used. First was for the Conan Roberts match, which had almost no climbing. Second was for Payasos vs. Dinamita in Tijuana, which was more a foot race up and down the cage than a wrestling match. WCW. Vader and Paul Orndorff were both out of action this week due to injuries. Vader's back hadn't recovered well enough to work the TV tapings or house shows and was replaced on tour by Steve Regal, but he's expected to work the Clash. Orndorff's knee was blown out and he was replaced all weekend by Gene Paul Levesque. He's expected to work the Clash and then have knee surgery and be out for a while. Randy Savage was in the office on November 11 working on negotiations. Contract hasn't been signed, although everyone expects it to happen. Bad timing department. Not only is Savage on the cover of this month's WWF magazine, but in a story, they directly bring up the subject of others jumping from WWF to other groups, with Savage calling the other groups all like AAA, showing whomever made up the quote doesn't pay attention to pro wrestling today because that would be a compliment, and that if another group offered him $40 million, he wouldn't leave the WWF. But after the big high last week with Savage coming in a strong TV rating, the mood turned around 180 degrees after the 11:13 show in Orlando. They did a dry run of the Clash match with Hogan and Sting and Dave Sullivan vs. Butcher and Avalanche and Kevin Sullivan, and drew just 2,000 fans and $31,000. The match was only 1/2 1-star and had no finish. The bell just rang out of nowhere and they announced the faces as winners, presumably by a phantom DQ. After running such a hot live show, Bash at the Beach, last time in the city, where Hogan is almost considered a hometown wrestler, and coming back with his house against his supposedly new fresh heel foes was bad enough on its own, but the semi-final was Dusty Rhodes' first match in Orlando in years, making the house even more of a disaster. Beavis and Butthead did a deal on Hogan a few weeks back, with his theme song playing in the back and them making fun of his using steroids. WCW Saturday Night on November 5 inexplicably did a 2.9 rating, which was the highest in 14 months since a Flair Sting 40:00 television match. Main Event that week did a 1.6 and Pro a 1.3. For whatever reason, Vader's second interview talking about Hogan that was supposed to be edited off the show, did air, as did an interview by Dustin Rhodes making reference to those interviews. 11/8 tapings at Center Stage for 11/19, a Kevin Sullivan squash win over Todd Morton, ending when Butcher and Avalanche destroyed Morton post-match. Avalanche won a handicap match. Sherry Martel managed Harlem Heat. TV main saw Stars and Stripes. They didn't come out with the belts, although they'll probably put them on them in post-production, over Bunkhouse Buck and Arnold Anderson when Patriot pinned Buck in a better-than-average match. They also taped the first half of the 11:26 show, which was highlighted by a very heated stare-down between Dustin Rhodes and Blacktop Bully, ending with Bully arrested for shoving Dustin. 11/9 tapings saw for 11:26, Alex Wright comes out dancing and they have the paid models disguised as fans mobbing him to give the illusion he's become a teenage heartthrob. TV main was Jim Duggan vs Steve Austin. Austin's surprise manager has turned out to be Harley Race. This airs after the Clash, so will be a Clash rematch. Race separated the ropes and Duggan tumbled out of the ring for a DQ finish. Vader ran in for a 3-on-1 until Sting made the save. For 12/3 they debuted a gimmick where Honky Tonk Man brings a jar at ringside for fans to put money in, you know, like the older fans in Mexico do for 4 stars matches. Somehow I don't think so. Harlem Heat beat the Fantastics in a very good match. A live interactive main event airs on November 20th and they'll be doing Saturday Night Live on December 10th. WWF. Notes from the 11/8 tapings for both Superstars and an 11/20 USA Network Survivor Series special from Bushkill, Pennsylvania. Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith did an interview and Owen Hart and Bob Backlund came out and argued with them. In what apparently will be matches for the special, Jerry Lawler beat Doink 1 star, Smoking Guns beat Heavenly Bodies 3¼ stars, Davey Boy Smith beat Owen Hart via DQ when Backlund interfered and put Smith in the chicken wing, and Bret made the save 2¾ stars. They also did a Bulldog vs Bigelow match ending with Ted DiBiase interfering for the DQ and them teasing a DiBiase/Bigelow split. Reports were that most of the wrestlers were mildly shocked and disappointed when learning about Savage going to WWF. It's no secret WCW is interested in Yokozuna, since Hogan needs his revenge at some point. Portuguese Man-O wore as PJ Walker, and got something of a push, wearing a Power Rangers type of ring outfit. He may also be called Aldo Montoya. At the 11/9 tapings from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Tatanka and Lex Luger went to a double countout. Owen Hart attacked Luger after the match, leading to a singles match which Luger won. Luger and Undertaker seemed to be pushed as the TPO faces since they were the ones who got the fireworks to go off during their ring introductions to create the artificial Big Pop. Men-O-War and 1-2-3 Kid debuted as a tag team beating Heavenly Bodies. Men on a Mission were back together as a tag team wearing Santa Claus hats. Lots of talk of Hercules coming in as a Cuban gang member from Razor Ramon's past to feud with him. Titan is also talking with Bruiser Bedlam in the tag team of Dan Crawford and Doug Furnas. Steve Lombardi was back doing jobs as Brooklyn Brawler at the tapings. Dave Heath, who married Luna Vachon, clips of which aired on WWF television last week, debuted as the Vampire, dressed up with hair like Vachon but didn't get over. He also worked as a jobber Black Phantom on the same tapings. IRS and Undertaker will start a feud as IRS came to the ring with 2 guys in Grim Reaper outfits. Somehow the feud is over that even when you die, you can't escape paying your taxes. They had their first match on November 13th in Boston which got no heat. Monday Night Raw on November 4th with Smith and Hart vs Hart and Neidhart drew a 2.8 rating, while Action Zone was back down to 1.5 and Mania to 1.0. Shawn Michaels and Diesel were shaking hands with fans coming to the ring at the taping and acting as if they were going to turn face. Michaels worked squash matches but only tagged in for the finish, as his hand really isn't ready to wrestle with. Michaels went to Europe for the current tour, but didn't wrestle. Diesel instead wrestled Fatu in singles matches. After the match they did a 2-on-1 on Fatu ending when Michaels clotheslined Diesel. Diesel teased the face turn but they eventually left together. Business in Germany continued great with full houses. Hart vs Bundy headlined. Fans didn't get into Bundy at all, however. At the 11/13 Boston show, the most heat of the show came for Bob Backlund's demonstration, which actually consisted of a lengthy period yelling at the fans and getting incredible heat for a long time. Don't know if this is a sign of things to come or not, but advertised as top matches for late November include Mabel vs Tatanka, Luger vs King Kong Bundy, Smith and Hart vs Hart and Neidhart and Backlund vs Undertaker. Bret Hart filmed an episode of Lonesome Dove, the series, which was shot in early November. The show is scheduled to air in March. Hart will also film a second episode the first week of December. Major weekend shows were St. Louis, 4,500, Chicago, 6,000, and Boston, 5,000, 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 1000, and Boston, 5000, 1000, and Boston.